What's up and welcome back to Interpreting the Scares. That's right, it's October still, so every horror film that I run into this month will partake in the scares in which I will be interpreting. Today is all about In the Tall Grass, which is a brand new Netflix horror film adapted from a story from both Stephen King and his son Joe Hill. Both pretty established authors, so I was really excited to see what they could do together given the fact that I didn't read this. Now, here's something to consider before seeing this movie. This is a full-length film based on a less than full-length book, otherwise known as a novella, which is something slightly longer than a short story. So, already you should know and understand that they will be filling in some gaps here and there to stretch out that length. The problem with that is short stories and novellas are compact for a reason. Something about the way that they are paced really only works for a short medium. That's why In the Tall Grass may have worked a little bit better narratively as an episode of Creepshow, which is known to also work with shorter Stephen King works, and did just that wonderfully in the first episode. If you haven't seen that, check it out. It's currently on Shudder, it's pretty good. And that being said, let's take a look at this movie. So this film centers on a variety of different people and their experiences once they run into a huge field full of, well, tall grass, and that ultimately venture into when they hear the cries of a young boy inside, desperate for their help. It's once inside this field that they soon discover that it's not all as it appears, and there may not actually be a way out of this fearful maze. So one thing that I really like about this movie was the concept alone. First of all, people really do get lost in things like this, and that feeling of being lost can absolutely be frightening given how claustrophobic you can feel, because no matter how far you physically get, the walls of the nature surrounding you never go away, making you feel like you're either going in circles or worse, not moving at all. So the fear that is found at the foundation of this movie is very real, regardless on how supernatural things eventually happen in the movie. I also like the mystical element of the film as well, as it reminded me of other riddling maze films out there like the Cube trilogy, which I absolutely adore. It mixes an element of mystery into the mix, which honestly really works well together with horror. However, it truly felt as if it was a bit too ambitious for its own good. It started to feel a little bit too confusing to the point where it didn't feel like it even knew what it wanted to do. It didn't feel like it knew how to decipher its own riddles. What it needed to be was a short film. Short and concise. They added too many people and too many things that happened all at the same time, and by the time the film ended, I just didn't care anymore. It was just way too repetitive. It was all starting to mix together in a fashion I didn't really care that much about. It was the pacing. The pacing, in my opinion, was all over the place, which is something that happens when you take a short story and expand it to a full feature film. There were definitely some good ideas strewn throughout the movie, though, because it looks and sounds pretty neat. If you have a surround sound system hooked up at home, I recommend you watch the movie based on the sound alone, because a part of what is so captivating and mysterious about the tall grass is how it flows and how it sounds when it flows. I don't have a surround sound setup, but I could tell the experience as a whole would have been a lot better if I did. It's hard to explain, but they definitely focused a lot on the sound. The visuals, obviously, you're talking about production design. The tall grass itself is very much a character in the movie, and its mysteries keep the film afloat. The people in the movie aren't incredibly memorable, though. They don't have a ton of characteristics or personality that you'll remember for long, and the acting for the main kid in the movie is kind of bad. Sometimes you can forgive the acting because he's also supposed to be mysterious and kind of creepy, but sometimes you can tell when the kid is trying a little bit too hard in some of the scenes, and that kind of took me out of it a little bit. That's too bad, because when it comes down to horror films specifically, sometimes the main hook is the kid, because we all want to root for him. Not so much here. In fact, there's not a lot of anybody to really root for. There's no real main character, and I'll be honest, I didn't find any of the characters really that much likable. They are there to serve a narrative function and purpose. That's about it. As a horror film, I found this film to be much more of a mystery thriller than anything, as nothing actually scared me. Some things work better than others, obviously, but I was personally much more invested in the mystery of how everything connected than I was to anything related to horror. So if you're looking for scares, I can't really recommend this movie. It looks nice, it sounds nice, it has a decent concept, but as a whole, I think they overdid themselves. It was too ambitious, and it ended up feeling overly convoluted and unbalanced when it came down to the pacing. If you're like me, you'll start out really invested into what's going on and kind of lose interest as the time progresses. I rated this movie 59%, 59 out of 100 possible stars. It definitely could have used some help here and there, but that's not to discredit where it does go right. Guys, if you have seen In the Tall Grass on Netflix, let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. As for YouTube, you know what to do. Subscribe to my channel if you like what you saw and you would like to see some more. Hit that thumbs up button because that always helps me out. And hit the little bell icon to be notified when I come out with my next review. But until next time, peace out.